Today is November 1st of 2020, and I have actually started putting pieces of the boat together. Just got started yesterday or day before, whatever it was. These are the first two layers of the bottom of the keel. And I'm letting this, I did that last night, that board there, and I got one more 12-footer to laminate, to glue up on there. And then those bottom two pieces of the keel will be done. And I set up a little station here to do my mixing of the epoxy. I've got some pumps now for my gallon jugs of epoxy, and that's kind of makes it easier if you're not mixing huge quantities. And here is a little mixture I got for the drill, and this seems to be working quite well to mix the epoxy in these quart containers. And I'm using a little 4-inch roller, and you can clean things up with epoxy with alcohol. And then after I coat everything, with a liquid layer of epoxy on the wood, I'm mixing a little bit of this, is it Clydal silica, Cabasil? Yeah. And then I'm using a notch trowel to apply a layer of thickened epoxy, slightly thickened epoxy, after the initial, the wet layer is put down. And that's just kind of to help, fill any gaps where there might be knots and that sort of thing. I'm filling those. And you can actually see here I actually scraped that off last night, but a little bit more came out. That's where epoxy was squirting out of there. And of course, when the next layer gets put on, it'll fill these in. You can see there too was a knot, a crack in the knot, and there's some epoxy coming out of that one. Okay, so that's the first pieces of wood. I picked up the last of the lumber that I think I'll need for the keel, for the most part. There's 20-footers over there, just to the left of that propane tank, behind that heater. There's 2 stacks of those. Then to the right there's 12-footers. I think I start out with 30 of those, 20 of the 20-footers. And then underneath here, this lofting table, we've got 16-footers, and then those are some 2x6s that'll be used for frames. And this, of course, is the lofting table, going to be the framing table also. I decided that these long pieces of the keel, I really didn't see any need to loft these out when they're just long, straight pieces of the keel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loft the ends of the keel, the bow and the stern. I'll loft these out, make drawings and probably patterns, and then I'll apply those, from here up to there. And that's what I'm starting to do here now. I'm starting to loft out the keel sections. I've got a little more insulating to do in here. I still don't have my foam board up on the ceiling yet, so heating it would be kind of expensive the way it is now. It's just that layer of reflectix up there. But I've got the foam ordered. I had to special order it. I'm going to put 1.5 inches of foam up in there. So once I get that up in there, that should help significantly. We had an extremely cold end of October. Last couple of weeks were more like December weather. Lows in the single digits and highs in the 20s and 30s. So it was kind of a tough month to get started in here. This next week now, the first week of November, is supposed to be in the 60s and even 70 degrees. There's my epoxy containers with the pumps on them. You can mix the epoxy using these graduated containers. If you're doing larger quantities, that's probably actually faster and easier just to mix by the ratio marks on the jars there. Or you can use a scale, which is what I historically have done. But either way, it works. Clamps, I've been ordering more clamps. When these keel sections start getting a little bigger, a lot of these clamps aren't going to fit. So I'm setting up more bar clamps, relatively short bar clamps. Of course, you can always put longer pieces of pipe on them, and you know, if you need to do something that's longer. But anyway, I'll have to switch to predominantly bar clamps once these keel sections get too thick. All right, that's the November 1st update.